Welcome to the Choose FI Radio Podcast, Episode 7. Congratulations, America, you're fat and broke.
You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
With me today is Brad. Welcome, Brad.
Hey, Jonathan.
All right, so today we're going to be discussing America's food obsession, specifically what's wrong and what to do about it.
Yeah, so we were a little sensationalist in our intro there with
very clickbait. I apologize.
but fat and broke is a perfect way to describe the scenario here in America, right? People eat out all the time. Eating out is one of the worst things you can possibly do for your health and for your finances, right? You're going to be broke and pretty tubby, right? I mean, that's just the way it works.
Hey, man, everything comes around. Back in the 1500s, overweight was a fashion.
Right,
you know, it's coming. I can feel it.
30-year lifespans were in vogue, right?
Yeah.
And again, we here at Choose FI, we are not dogmatic about anything. If you want to eat out every so often, if you value that and you find, you get pleasure and satisfaction from eating out and meeting friends and doing that kind of stuff, go for it. I mean, we're not going to tell you don't ever eat out. That's ridiculous. We're not into depriving ourselves. But there are people who are just lazy. They don't want to cook. They don't want to plan, and they pick up takeout or they go out to eat and have drinks and do all these kind of things. And it adds up both in the bottom line and it adds up in the waistline. And it doesn't take much to look at, walk through any mall in America and realize how overweight people are. This is not rocket science. People are eating like garbage and they're impoverishing themselves at the same time. I mean, it's the worst possible combination.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really don't have a whole lot to add to that specific thought, but there has to be, a simpler way than the millions of different fad things that are out there. And I think that if you can figure out the food situation, if you can figure out specifically the food and the budget situation, so many other things fall in line. So today we just want to have a conversation about our own personal philosophies, what we think, and then specifically how we take some of our philosophies and apply that to what we actually do, and maybe give you some actionable tips that you can use in your own home.
Yeah, and Jonathan and I are going to learn a lot about how we live our own lives. And we didn't talk about this before we started recording. This is truly a conversation. I expect to learn a heck of a lot from him and hopefully vice versa. And we'd love to hear from you as always.
And is it okay for me to do a sidebar here and just pivot into something else? I want to share with you kind of what our thought process is. Have you ever been to, a coffee shop and you're drinking your coffee and you notice that maybe there's, two people behind you having a conversation, and that conversation is really interesting. So you lean back and see if you can catch it. You couldn't quite hear it all, but the little bit you got was really cool. And that's the way that I envision this podcast. I actually met Brad for the first time 6 to 8 months ago. And we had this just fantastic conversation, just hashing out ideas. And it's fun to think about this stuff with someone who's in the same space. That's the sort of conversation that I enjoy listening to. And it's also the premise for this podcast, to bring you along for this, fireside chat where you, the audience, can experience what we're talking about and you can live it with us and we can live it with you. This isn't, forced for us. If we didn't have this podcast, we would be doing the same thing. But if I were going to be honest, we ran out of people in our immediate social circle to talk to about this. You become that weird guy that's always talking about financial life hacks. And it's unfortunate, but that's just what it is. So we want you to engage with us and enjoy talking about this material with us. And we're going to make this show very interactive. It's been our goal from the very beginning to find a way to crowdsource this whole project. And, there's one or two other shows that are in a similar space as us and they're discussing similar topics, but they're interview based. And I think that's usually due to geographic limitations. But Brad and I we live in Richmond, Virginia, And we can schedule these weekly or bi-weekly podcasts, and we can build on each other's ideas. So these are fireside chats. This is a live mastermind group, and we're sharing it with you.
Yeah, and we're literally sitting right next to each other, 1 foot away, and just chatting about it. And we are not the world's foremost experts in saving money on food, as we're talking about in this particular podcast. We're just two guys who are trying to figure it out on our path to financial independence.
So Brad, this was your idea for the soapbox today. So why don't you start it off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So, okay, my wife, Laura, loves to cook. It's one of her true passions. She's constantly reading food magazines, sharing recipes with her friends and her sisters who, many of them like to cook. And we are always experimenting with new food, but we do it in the house. So we look at this as a luxury on some level, that we're not eating mac and cheese every night or peanut butter sandwiches. If we wanted to do that to save money like crazy and spend 30 cents per person per meal, we would each have, 3 eggs at every meal, and that would be it. There are certainly ways to be ultra, ultra frugal, but there are ways to be smart and still save a whole lot of money at the same time. We do the math. My wife and I are both CPAs, so we're kind of geeky accountants, and we generally come out to dinners being about $2 per person per meal. That's over the average. Obviously, if we were doing, sometimes there are spices included that we try to average out. We're not sitting there crunching the numbers on every meal, but generally $2 to $2.50. And that's for gourmet, home-cooked meals that are fabulous.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. And we're just a little bit smarter about the ingredients. Okay, so that means if I like asparagus, if asparagus is out of season and I'm making this up, if it was $6 per bushel, we're not going to buy that. Just simple. We're going to buy something in season that's cheaper. And when asparagus is back in season, okay, maybe we'll buy that again. I find that the money really starts adding up on these kind of, vegetables and side dishes, and you can be smart about it. You can get a bag of carrots for $1. And sure, maybe carrots might not be my number one choice, but they're pretty darn good for you. And it's a nice little side dish if you put it with hummus or whatever. I even eat, peanut butter on carrots for breakfast sometimes. That's like my little breakfast is a Quest bar and carrots and peanut butter. That's pretty much what I eat every single day for breakfast.
I found Quest bars last year. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they are good. And honestly, they're a little more expensive than, they're
That's
like
$2 a bar.
Yeah, they're $2 per pop. And I recently, actually, since we're talking about food, is Laura and I sat down and said, we're each having a Quest bar every single morning. It's $4 a day. That's $120 per month on Quest bars. That's crazy when you can get at our local Wegmans, you can get a dozen eggs for, I think it's 59 cents. So you're talking 5 cents per egg.
When you start to grab your second or third one throughout the day, you realize you need to cut them back a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, they're delicious and very good for you, obviously. And but at $2 a pop, I mean, as silly as that sounds, because, we are in a fortunate financial position, but that's the kind of thing we think about. Do I really want to be spending $120 a month on Quest bars when maybe I can eat eggs 3 days a week, and eggs are phenomenal for you, and do it at 10 cents per morning for 2 eggs?
Okay, so let's turn this into a little bit more of a hot seat interview here. I am curious, when is the last time you went out to eat at a restaurant or Chipotle, anything like that?
Wow, that's a good question. So we were just up in New York visiting our family and friends. We're from Long Island, and we were there over the Christmas holidays. So we actually did go out to eat one time with our friends for Mexican food. So,
yeah, okay. But what about normal course of life? You're at home as part of y'all's weekly thing.
We do not go out to eat essentially ever.
Wow.
I mean, in fairness, we have 2 young daughters. So this is not like look at how great we are type scenario. We don't have a babysitter. We don't have grandparents right down the road. And restaurants are so expensive as it is. We're not going to spend $30 for 2 hours of babysitting
100%.
to add to the $60 dinner. That's crazy talk. So we do every now and again eat out, I would say, but eat out in an intelligent way. So we know that lunch is significantly cheaper to eat out than dinner. Okay. So, for us, it's about getting that extravagance because, we do like eating out. We're normal human beings. Getting new, different food is really interesting and fun. So we have this fantastic Chinese restaurant here in Richmond called Peter Chang's. Okay. This is a guy that people travel essentially all over the country to find where this guy is opening up new restaurants. And he randomly opened up in a strip mall here in Richmond, Virginia. It's like 2 miles down the road from us in a Walmart shopping center of all things. I mean, this is like a gourmet chef written up in the New Yorker and the Washington Post, New York Times, 2 miles down the road in a Walmart. Now, dinner at Peter Chang's is expensive. It's $20 a meal. But lunch there is, I think they might have just raised the price. I want to say it's like $8. So for $8, you get this full, delicious entree. You get a spring roll, you get rice, you get soup. That's extravagant as far as we're concerned. And we don't need to go out for dinner. There's no marginal benefit for us to go out to dinner as opposed to lunch, because it's just that fun of going out as a couple and just having a meal out. So if we can do that for a third of the price at lunch, in most cases, we're bringing home leftovers and having it the next day. So, I mean, that essentially cuts that $8 per person per meal into $4 per person per meal. This is kind of how we think about it, right?
I think the same way. So
nice.
I'm with you.
Okay, cool. So that's not too bad. I mean, that's an extravagance. And after you throw in tip, maybe it's $5 per person per meal. That's not too shabby. And we're getting this fantastic meal 2 days in a row. So that's how we think about it. Even something like Trader Joe's, one of our favorite little things is Trader Joe's has this frozen thing called, I think it's orange chicken. And we keep a couple of them in our freezer. We have an extra freezer actually out in our garage, just so we have some extra storage space, because we like to stock up on things when we find good deals. You know, that's kind of like another little benefit of having money is you don't have to worry about cash flow. It's not about how much money do I have this month. It's what do I want to spend money on. So I always tell Laura, and my wife Laura, she honestly fights with this. She has an issue, I think, in terms of pure absolutes in a lot of senses. So if I know we're going to use, and I'm not a hoarder, I'm not a crazy person, but if I know we're going to use 4 rolls of aluminum foil in a year and aluminum foil is half off, buy 4 rolls, buy 8 rolls, you know?
As long as you don't have 3 years worth of mustard at your home,
right.
You'll get no complaints from me.
No. We're not doing anything crazy. So I just like to be a little smart. So this orange chicken, right? Perfect example. Like I said, we just drove back from vacation. We got back, the traffic was terrible. We got back at 5:00 at night. Now, what are most people doing when they get home at 5:00? They just got back from vacation? Takeout. They're going to Wendy's or they're going to their local Chinese place and getting 2 $10 combination meals, right? That's just obvious. What we did was we went into the freezer, grabbed this $5 bag of delicious orange chicken from Trader Joe's, cooked up some rice, and the meal was probably $5.20 for the 2 of us. And it was simple. We didn't have to rush around. I mean, that's just like a simple life hack. They're like just a tiny little bit of planning ahead. And we had this fantastic meal.
All right. So I'm interested. One of the things that we'll get to when we get to me is I also am very interested in the staples of your diet. What are the things that you guys, there's going to be some patterns. What are the, maybe top 10 things that you find yourself purchasing every week or two, or whenever whatever frequency you use?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Unfortunately, I am not the person who shops. So I wish we had Laura here.
Well, why don't we have her here?
Yeah, we definitely, that would actually be great. She'd love to come on, I'm sure. And, she can talk about how she food shops. She's fantastic. I mean, she has like the unit price of every single thing memorized.
Oh yeah, we need her. We'll have to stagger through this without her, but we'll do a part 2 and we'll get her on for the next one.
But I do want to answer your question. I mean, our staples are, what Laura does basically is she food shops. We try to be more efficient. So life is not about making everything uber efficient and, being a machine, but it's just being smart. Everybody complains about being busy. How many times do you hear people either complain or, half brag about, oh, I'm so busy. But you're busy because you don't plan. I don't mean that in a jerky way, but like you're not thinking about your week. If you're busy, just be smart.
And how much TV did you watch last night? You got to look at, are you busy and you got through the whole season of...
Right, Grey's Anatomy, as you said.
Grey's Anatomy. Right? I don't know where that came from. I've actually never watched Grey's Anatomy, but that's the one I came up with.
So, what we do now is, and, in fairness, this was something we've worked on. Laura used to have 4 different stores that she went to once a week or once every other week. And like, that's crazy talk. That's a lot of visits to the food store, and that's a lot of hours. So even if, let's say she bought a couple things at Walmart, if we have this new wonderful Wegmans that opened up and maybe a couple of these items are maybe 20 cents more expensive, it's not worth it to waste your time going to another store for those couple things. Just buy it at Wegmans. do it in one fell swoop. So she goes to the food store once a week now, and she goes with some plan. We sit down and just say, okay, let's plan out the 2 or 3 meals that we want to cook this week. And what we always do, one of our biggest tips is if you're going to cook something, cook it for 2 nights. Okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, this is huge for us. So some people are like psychologically averse to leftovers. And my response is, come on, man, what are you doing?
Yeah, I eat leftovers like 5 days a week. I have no problem. It could be 7 days old in chicken, and I have complete confidence in my constitution.
Yeah, I mean, leftovers are perfectly healthy. I mean, we're not living in the Stone Ages. They're sitting in a refrigerator. And second, who the heck are you? A king? I mean, like that you're getting waited on and getting new food every day. Like if you want to just somehow cut out the, oh, I'm busy, or just stop wasting money, it's buy something and have a plan. So Laura might cook, let's say she has this chicken that she puts in the slow cooker that is like this Mexican chicken, we call it. And she'll have a plan for 2 to 3 nights for it. And maybe she'll make enough that she'll freeze half of it. So we'll have 2 or 3 nights that week. And then she has chicken in the freezer for 2 weeks later. Because, we're not going to eat the same thing every week. But just by taking no time at all, it's just throwing things in a slow cooker, we have 5 dinners worth, right? I mean, think about how valuable that is. Just from a time perspective.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page. I really would like to, with Laura, just dig into some of the details and see, kind of what recipes have worked for y'all. I think that we're doing a lot of the stuff the same. I haven't completely figured it out. And to be honest with you, part of me says, oh, well, you can discount Brad because he's financially independent and isn't working and doing this at the same time. But I'm in the dual income family. And I think maybe some of our audience might do that too, because they're kind of in that space and it's that time component. But I think we all have different challenges that we face for different reasons. Like Brad has 2 kids. I don't have 2 kids. And there's reasons that you may not feel that you can do something. But I guess I would encourage you, the audience, don't write something off just because they don't have the exact same situation as you. Instead, I would encourage you to look for what is usable from that. How can I use it? So, I completely agree with Brad. America has a food obsession. We have grocery stores at every major intersections, restaurants in every corner, fast food chains to fill the gaps in between. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I've talked to all my neighbors and family members, and those conversations mirror the statistics that I read online, which is that most of middle class America's disposable income goes to, food and grocery bill or restaurants. And the food budget outside of the mortgage and probably takes up the biggest piece, anywhere from $500 to upwards of $1,200 a month when you add in restaurants and alcohol. If you just were to take one piece from that and say, cut out the restaurants and the alcohol, you could probably, and if that's where you're spending your money, that is, then you could probably save $300 a month just from that for some people that I know that don't have that money, but that's where they spend it.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jonathan. And, I don't want to ever have a holier than thou attitude. That's not where I'm coming from at all. I understand many or most people are working 9 to 5 or even longer and commuting, and they have to pick up their kids and run and do this. And the reflexive answer is, oh, we'll just pick up takeout. It's simple. But I reject that. I think that actually causes more harm. It causes more time to be wasted. Because you think of it as, oh, I'm just going to go pick up takeout. But I mean, realistically, it's going to take you 20 minutes round trip at minimum to do that. I mean, that's if the place is close by. And that's every single night. That's 7 days a week. You're talking a couple hours out of your life at minimum. Whereas for us, it's just 5 minutes of planning. Jonathan talked about, recipes and things, and we'll talk to Laura about that. But we have just a little index of like our top 50 recipes, as I call it. And we're always experimenting with new things, and we don't want to make stuff that's garbage. So we're constantly just kind of testing and iterating. And if there's something brand new that we tried that's like, as I joke, like an A++, that immediately goes on that top 50 recipe. And then maybe something comes off. And we'll just sit down on a Sunday and say, what are the 2 things we want to make this week? And that's 4 meals. Because like I mentioned, we're always making for at least 2 nights. So, and in all likelihood, out of those 2 meals, there's going to be enough left over for a 5th person meal. So, the way that we do that is there's that leftover, and, let's say I'll eat that the 3rd night, and Laura will eat a slice of pizza out of the freezer. So this is literally, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Like this is what we do. We buy one pizza. Laura, she doesn't want to sit there and chow down on multiple slices of pizza. She has one slice of pizza and, a side dish of a salad or vegetables.
I could not walk away from one piece of pizza. I physically would be, I would try, but I'm like at 4, man. I think that's what's going on with my waistline is I just can't walk away from that one piece.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how she does it, honestly. Right.
She's like mastered Yin or Buddhism. And she's found that inner peace. That's incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, we're from New York where, pizza is king. I mean, there are pizza places on every corner, but
it doesn't even have to be good pizza. I just can't walk away from it until it's gone.
So, I mean, simply we made 2 meals, right? So that's good enough for 5 nights of dinner because each of those meals are good for 2. So that gets us up to 4. And then there's some leftovers invariably. And I'll eat anything. I'll eat Chinese food with cold pizza with lobster. I don't care. I'll eat anything that's put in front of me. So we have enough for that 5th night. And then Laura grabs a slice of pizza. And just for cooking 2 meals, and in most cases, they're pretty simple to make, we have 5 nights of dinner. I mean, how is that for planning? I mean, that just works for us. And we think, honestly, that it'll work for everybody. And it's going to save you so much money because it's so much more efficient.
We need to build this out into something that is like a PDF that's just you can take with you. And this is the game plan. There's got to be a way that we can just package this just a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me tell you where I'm at. I haven't quite finished this yet, but this was my kind of where I was coming from a completely different direction. But I think we're ending up very close to the same place. I think we could probably take some of these thoughts and really package it well. So I don't have time. I have a full-time job. My wife has a full-time job. We don't have any kids. So, we got that going for us right now in terms of time, but we have one on the way, which is fantastic. I'm super excited, but that's going to be another component, right?
And congratulations, obviously. Just broke some news here. Hopefully our audience, I'm sure, is congratulating you out there.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, due in April. It's a baby boy. We're very excited. Nice. So I am thinking, I'm not financially independent yet. I will be working for the foreseeable future. And I have to make judgment calls every single day on how I can get the most bang for my buck. So I've already come to the same conclusion as Brad in that I can never cook for just one day. It has to provide multiple days, multiple meals. I have no problem with that. My child will never know anything else. And because we're also living on a budget, we also can't afford to waste food. So I think there's probably 2 tests that are very simple that you could look at to establish whether or not you are being efficient from both a waste perspective and a health perspective. One is the mirror and the waste test. If you have a lot of stored energy, I'm very proud of you from an efficiency perspective, but that's probably a good sign that you're consuming more than you need to. And then 2 is the fridge test. Go open up your fridge and is it filled to the brim? That is probably a sign of waste. Now, Brad has seen my fridge.
Yeah, it's pretty bare.
It's pretty bare. and part of that is that my wife and I decided, within the last year or so that we were throwing out massive amounts of food. We didn't have 5 kids or 4 kids. So we didn't have this huge tribe that we were feeding. And so for us to have a completely stocked fridge is just crazy because we can't eat it all before it goes bad. And we try not to eat a lot of stuff that requires preservatives, I guess. I don't have any issue with organic versus non. I'm just not one of those people. But in general, I don't eat a lot of canned foods, that sort of thing. It's mostly, fresh things that will go off in a natural course of time over a week or 2. And we couldn't eat a full fridge worth. So we were throwing stuff out. And that's a wasted money. Every single time you throw something in the trash can, that is $1, at least $1 that has been wasted. And so we really focused on, are we buying it and then throwing it out? If we're throwing it out, let's stop buying it and focus on getting something else that we'll actually use. And so I've tried a bunch of different things in that vein. I tried once a month meals. I signed up for probably 3 to 4 of those food budget programs, and they give you the shopping list and all your meals. And there's 3 websites I'm going to mention, the ones that I actually tried. One was eMeals, one was once a month meals, and one was Don't Waste the Crumbs. And they work, exactly as they're advertised. If you follow it, you're going to save thousands of dollars of each year on groceries. With these programs, you typically make all of the food for the entire month split up over 2 to 3 days. So what's the problem? So I liked all of these programs. And for the first month, I was a rock star. But, by the end of the second or the third month, I've stopped using the service. Now they work as advertised, but I found it to be mentally exhausting, always having to learn new recipes. Each new recipe adds a small amount of stress to my life. Most of these meals seem to be tailored to the stay-at-home husband or wife who has time to insource most of the work. And, my wife and I, we both work and it just didn't feel sustainable. And by the time one of us has a day off, it's time to do laundry. And since I work every other weekend, I really don't want to sacrifice my free remaining weekend cooking all week. So that's the problem. Is that something that is relatable, I guess, for most people, you think, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I just hearing about this for the first time, if you're doing all of your cooking for a month over 2 to 3 days, I mean, the mental hurdle of that, I have to imagine, is hugely significant. So for me, it's all about just making this easy. Right. I mean, that's the name of the game as far as I'm concerned.
That's the solution I came to as well. Repetition. I needed a meal plan that's simple. I needed a plan that only required me to put in 30 to 60 minutes twice a week and would provide meals that were 1, are healthy, 2, delicious, and 3, repeatable. So they can be eaten again and again without growing old. Simplicity. That is a common theme that you'll hear with Brad and I. Simplicity is the key. The meal plan, it could not take up all of my time and it couldn't be too exhausting to think about. I didn't want to make fresh yeast rolls 3 times a week and things that took 4 to 5 hours just to make one product. I don't mind eating a lot of the same things. And I think that most families have patterns that they stick with, whether or not they realize it. So why not just use that to your advantage? So if you can crush your food expenses and you can reduce it from whatever that bloated original number was, maybe $800, $1,000, $1,200 a month, if you could reduce that down to $300 a month, the money you could save can easily offset the cost of, maybe debt, maybe a car payment. It could speed up your journey to financial independence. So I really wanted to focus on how can I actually just decrease my food bill? And I ran some math equations on my website. I did a whole blog article about this, and you could take a look at it. And it's pretty interesting, but it's not really the focus of what we're doing today. So what I did is I actually just focused on, all right, what are the ingredients that I'm actually using every single time that are going to form the basis of my meal plan? And I came up with a title, and it's a little bit clickbait, but it works for me. And it was the ultimate Costco meal plan. So the premise is simple, cheap, and repeatable, right?
Makes sense.
Are you following me, Brad? Is there anything you want to?
No, it's great. It's great. And we're big Costco shoppers. So I'm curious to learn more from you.
So I am going to talk about the 10 items that I buy every single month on a regular basis that I get for Costco, and they form the basis of this meal plan. And to be honest, this is a growing list. I haven't quite had the energy to completely finish it yet, but the idea is when Brad talked about price per meal, the important word that he used there was the average. It's not so much that every meal costs 30% per meal or 50% per meal, but the average hits a certain amount. That's what really makes it. So if you have a couple of 2 people and every meal costs $2 a meal, so that means your automatic cost is $4 per meal, and then you eat 3 meals a day, so that's $12 a day. You multiply that times 30, that's you're at $360 a month, right? Yep. So that's kind of where we're starting, and we're looking at the cost for food. We're looking at simplicity, repetition, and how can we use buying in bulk at discount prices to really achieve that goal. So what I am trying to do is come up with a plan where you tailor 80% of your meals around what you can buy in bulk at Costco, and then you fill in the blanks with special deals like Brad was mentioning with the orange chicken, or on pre-made dishes or specialty cuts of meat. Many grocery staples are very cheap, like oatmeal and rice, super, super cheap. Whereas steak and fish, that's going to be pretty expensive. So 20 cents a serving versus $10 a serving. And the key of what I'm saying is not to convince you to eat only oatmeal or steak, but it's just to find a balance, something that provides maximal satisfaction for the most efficient cost with a little bit of healthiness built in. So if you're going to eat lobster every day, like Brad was talking about, at some point, it's going to start tasting like soap. And if you have smoothies every day, at some point, you're going to stop enjoying it. So how can we minimize our time in the kitchen, maximize the money in our wallet, and still have a great time enjoying all the options that we are blessed to have? So here it is. Here's what I came up with right now, currently, as it is for my top 10 items. You ready for this, Brad?
Yeah, let's do it.
1, a 25-pound bag of flour. You can get that at Costco for $5.59. If you go to your local grocery store, a 5-pound bag of flour is going to cost you $3.59 or $4, something like that. I have a bread maker, and I highly encourage all of you to buy a bread maker. And the reason for this is that while you can make bread from scratch and you do not need one, time is part of this plan. I do not have time to spend 6 hours, whether or not it's passively involved, being surrounding it. I don't have time for 2 rises and a bake. I just don't. And a bread maker, while it is not going to give me the same quality loaf as doing it the old-fashioned way, it'll get me 80%. and I'm happy with that. So Brad and I have talked about Pareto's principle before. We'll come back to that, but this is one of those 80-20 choices, and the bread maker gets me efficiency and what I can do if I do that. So my total cost for this bag of flour, $5.59. It will make me, I think it's 31 loaves. So total cost per loaf, 18 cents.
Wow. And you're going through one of those per month?
I haven't quite figured it out yet. I just kind of started, but that bag's, I think I'm almost done with that first bag. And my consumption of bread usually follows my waistline.
Yeah,
so, as I see it start to go up, I'm like, maybe we need to cut back on the bread.
Put disclaimers on this episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You got to use balance. But you know what? Bread isn't just bread. I mean, I use bread for paninis. We make paninis at home. They're excellent. Really gourmet stuff. Obviously you can use it in toast, sandwiches, you can make desserts. I mean, lots of really, really neat stuff. And I make whole wheat bread, white bread, rosemary, cheese bread. I mean, there's some really good options there. But if you do it from that baseline, you can make it very, very cheaply.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, obviously from a per loaf standpoint, that's phenomenal.
That bread would cost you $3 to buy a loaf of that.
No, that's amazing. And, I know nothing about bread makers, so I will try to put
so easy. You just throw like 8 ingredients and walk away. See what happens.
We'll try to make a post on that, and we'll also put a link to the bread maker that Jonathan uses in the show notes, just so I know nothing about it. So I'd love to learn, and hopefully you guys do too.
If you ever visit me, you will find very quickly that once I find something and I find it to be useful, I immediately want to show everybody how it's improving my life in some small way. And essentially, when you're listening to this podcast, you're getting the exact same thing, though maybe you're a couple cities away. So welcome. All right. So number 2 is oats. We also start pretty much every single morning with oatmeal. Sometimes we'll dress them up with some banana or raisins, cinnamon, something like that. But oats, they're super inexpensive and very versatile. You can do a lot of things with them. You can get a massive container of it for $7.99. So the cost per serving would be 7 cents.
Sounds pretty good.
We add bananas, cranberry, raisins, some sweetener, something like that. So, you'll bring, the cost will go up, but the average cost of this meal, 25 cents. Number 3, I consume a lot of yogurt, Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt. It's high protein, very good for you. We do the plain, and we usually add that to smoothies and sometimes oatmeal. I actually at one point went back and was making yogurt from scratch, and you can do that. It's easy, it's good, it tastes, but the time component again, and it's not time where I'm actively standing in front of it, but the process to make it required more of it than I was really enjoying. And so when I looked at the cost to make 2 jugs of yogurt, you have to start with a gallon of milk. That's what you start with, and plus some sort of starter culture. So if you're paying $3.79 for the milk, and it's taking you 24 hours of passive time to build the yogurt, and then you got to strain it and all this other stuff. If I can get 2 really nice sized Greek yogurts for only $5.79, that's another 80-20 thing. And I buy the yogurt. Yeah,
that's a no brainer. I mean, you should have seen my head take over here when my head nearly exploded when I heard Jonathan made his own yogurt.
I will do anything once. Yeah. I will try it. That's when, we talk about in our intro, we're going to go to the edge, find out what works, and then come back and give you the sweet spot. This is what I'm giving you. This is an example.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I tried it. For you guys, maybe for myself a little bit, I tried it and it wasn't efficient. So a lot of people are talking about making yogurt, and that's very nice and cute, but I don't think you need to do it to save $1. All right, number 4, berries. We use a ton of berries. This is one of the things that we splurge on. So we will get the frozen mango when it's available. We'll get the triple berries. We use them in all of our smoothies, and you can get 20 to 25 servings per bag. So that's a no-brainer for us. Number 5, kale or spinach. We purchase these. They're range from $3 to $4. You can get 1 to 2 cup per serving and 15 servings easily. We use those in salads, or if you really want to up the ante on the antioxidant smoothies, you can put them in there. And if at this point you're thinking, wow, he came up with bread and kale, well, go to my website. I've got some really cool pictures there. I mean, bread and kale can be delicious if you dress them up the right way, I promise you. And this is the guy that wouldn't eat a salad as a kid. So other list items, number 6, black beans. A lot of amazing things you can do with black beans. And then when you pair that with rice, which would be number 7, you've got a complete protein. Number 8 would be cereal. They have some really good prices on cereal products. Number 9, eggs. Eggs are a staple protein for our diet. And number 10 would be probably a combination of potatoes and onions that we use for various combos. So those are, I have more of this, but when I go to the grocery store, almost every single time that I go, those end up in my shopping cart. And those aren't particularly expensive. I mean, you're getting really bargain discounts. The big thing you got to figure out, if you make the commitment to buy those, you need to eat it. That should be the challenge. If you find yourself throwing stuff out, then you've done something wrong. You're buying too much. You should buy less. But by forcing yourself to stick with this basic template and you know those are healthy meals, your body is evidence of the fuel that you're providing it. So if you're providing it a combination of the things that I just told you, with maybe the exception of the bread, but everything else in there is going to produce a healthy, fit body. And no one overdoes it on salad. You're just not. You're going to stop eating it at some point. So I buy meat just a little bit differently. So sometimes we do go ahead and we buy the chicken in bulk at Costco, but they don't have the lowest prices on everything, including chicken. And so there's a life hack there, an actionable tip. First, when you have 20 things that you're purchasing on a regular basis, find out your price per unit. So figure out what the unit of measure is it ounce or pound, and then make sure that you're getting the most competitive price. That'll let you know when somebody's sneaking one by you, which grocery stores, that's what they do. They give you low prices on some stuff and high prices on others, and they're not beyond changing the price on you. So know what a good price per unit is. So for chicken, maybe $2.99 a pound, something like that. My current method to make sure I'm getting a good deal is to comb a website called Deals to Meals. It's a $5 a month subscription service. I do this once a week. They actually will collate the ads for major grocery stores nationwide and tell you who has the best deals. Then I will plan 2 meals around that specific deal using either their website or Budget Bites, which is a fantastic website on the internet that has pre-measured out everything in the cost per serving. Fantastic website. And we use that for maybe new and creative meals. So we actually know the cost per unit. So when you're buying your meat fresher, I don't like buying it in bulk. I like buying it a little bit fresher. It's going to have better taste and it's going to inject some variety into our diet. I don't always do chicken. I don't always do pork. I don't always do steak. But by basing it around the weekly ads, you're going to make sure that you don't wreck your budget on the meats, because you could easily spend $25, $30 a pound on meat if you're not watching what you're doing. And that'll get you 90% there. Just those 10 items that I mentioned, plus the meats that you're getting a great deal on. But you do have to fill in the gaps. And this is what Brad was talking about. Sometimes you want something different. You don't want to make it. Well, historically, and to some degree, we still do. The only eating out that my wife and I do, especially while we're paying down debt right now, is we do Chipotle and Panera. That is the only thing that makes it on our list. And around $7 a serving with 2 people, and we don't have to worry about a babysitter. If you notice a pattern, we do not spend money on tips. I don't go to restaurants where I have to leave a tip. I'm not going to pay an extra 15% right now. It just doesn't make sense in my life. So we, $8 a meal, $16. I am going to go check out Peter Chang's, by the way. That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But what I found is that by buying a few pre-made meals at Costco, we can really cut down our food costs in this area as well. So if I shop at Costco, we usually try to find which products have manufacturer rebates. That's one of the things that Costco really markets. They want it to be a discovery, you to find new items that you haven't seen before. So they routinely bring in stuff that you haven't seen before. And so, this past week we had rosemary mint lamb shanks, which were delicious. And they want a manufacturer rebate where they gave you $5 off. So you got 2 rosemary mint lamb shakes for $7. And so it's kind of a challenge. If you can lock down 90% of your diet and just get used to the repetition, you like the meals, it gets rid of that decision fatigue, right? And then if you fill in the basis with some splurges that don't wreck your budget, it's very simple to come up with a program that avoids decision fatigue. It gets rid of all the barriers that you have with your time, and you will get leaner on it. You'll get healthier on it, and it is sustainable over time. So that's kind of my process over the last 4 years, how I've moved from going to the extreme, whatever I wanted, to the once a month meals, and how I brought it back to where we're at currently. And, you can, if you're tracking it, if you want to, if you're in a place where you need to, you can very easily live off of $300 a month. I suspect that you could feed your 2 kids and some pets with that budget if you did it the way that I just suggested.
Yeah, and one thing I kind of wanted to tie back just real quick on when I was mentioning how we go about our food, because it ties directly into health, which is overeating. I think, I grew up in a family, and this is not to, denigrate my family or throw them under the bus, but we're eaters. We come from a long line of eaters, and people are, somewhat overweight. And one of the many things that Laura has done to improve my life is to make me realize that I don't need to eat that much to be satisfied and to be healthy, most importantly. And one of the great things that we do where, if Laura's making one particular dish, let's say, chicken marsala, and we've decided that pot of chicken marsala is good for 2 nights for the 2 of us, it almost invariably causes us to not overeat on the first night.
Portion it out ahead of time. It's a great tip.
Exactly. And we're looking at that pot, and we could easily just split it in half and just say, okay, this is for the other night, this is for this night. But in some level, that actually might even cause you to eat more than you would. So what we do is we just kind of eyeball it. We take a normal human serving, and that's our dinner. If we want a little second, sometimes just psychologically, you want seconds, right? So you take a tiny little scoop of rice, a tiny little scoop, a couple pieces of chicken, and a little bit of sauce, and that's seconds, and you're satisfied then, right? Whereas like before, or if we said, oh, we don't need leftovers, or we're just going to throw it out, we would eat a whole heck of a lot more. But psychologically, we're looking at that and saying like, okay, this is going to ruin having this for a second night, and that means Laura has to cook again. She has to maybe go food shopping again. I mean, that is powerful, right? Like that's a multi-hour decision to take that extra serving just to, be a pig one day. Laura has to go to the food store and she has to cook again because I decided to eat a little bit more. I mean, that's a real simple decision not to do that. And then the wonderful benefit is I don't get fat, right? Like, I mean, that is as positive of a thing as you can do. I mean, you're getting ultra inexpensive meals. You're not having to be busy all the time cooking and food shopping, and you don't get large, right? I mean, that's win-win-win.
And I'm not saying this from the perspective of someone that has it all figured out. I have issues with food. I've always had issues with food. I have a lot of discipline, but I do not have a lot of self-control. So one of the tips that I've had to learn, and I have to realize this because this is just the place I'm at, is that if it is in my house, I'm going to eat it. And then I'm going to tell myself, well, if you eat it now, then you don't have to worry about it later. I mean, that is just on repeat throughout my life. So you just don't find sugar in my house unless the intent is that it will be consumed over the next day or so. There's no sweets stored in the cupboard somewhere. And I'm not telling you need to do that. I think I have issues with food. I think it's been documented. But if you are that person, just like every other problem that we talk about, you need to come up with a solution for it. So my solution is, you know what? That's my problem. Don't have it in the house. If you only have healthy options in your house, you're only going to eat healthy food. And then that's one less thing that you need to figure out every single day.
Yeah, you really want to take willpower out of your decision making. You don't want it to be, oh, there's all this delicious, potato chips and sweets in the cupboard, but I can't eat it, right? I mean, that's crazy talk. Like anytime you walk by the kitchen and you have to say, oh, I don't want to eat those Oreos because it's going to make me fat. I mean, eventually you're going to just give it up.
Don't buy candy at Costco.
Right.
Don't do it.
Right. Seriously. So it's just like Jonathan said, which is so important. We are not coming at this from the position of experts. We're just regular guys who have figured out something that works for each of our families. And that's not to say we're not going to have 10 new tweaks in the next year. And we're going to be, I suspect we'll each be smarter for bouncing these ideas off of each other. And at the beginning of 2018, we'll have, like I said, 10 extra tweaks that'll just make this so much more efficient.
Yeah, we can revisit this one next year.
Yeah, for sure. And just the final word from my perspective is this is a process, right? I mean, if you would have seen me and Laura eating when we were single 10 years ago or 12 years ago, whatever, we look back and we're like, what was wrong with us? I mean, we would make this pasta dish with an entire loaf of garlic bread and just house the whole thing. I mean, like, what kind of normal human being eats a half a loaf of garlic bread? And it's crazy talk. Like, you're going to be 400 pounds, right? But, we just decided, okay, we still like garlic bread. So let's make a third of a loaf, right? You still get that delicious hit of the garlic bread, but you're having 1/6 of a loaf in that case, and you save money, right? Not to be stupid, because, we're not worrying about a 99-cent loaf of garlic bread, but we would buy this, loaf of Italian bread at the store, immediately cut it into thirds, put them in aluminum foil, the 2/3, and then you don't need to shop again, right? You have that bread whenever you need it. And I mean, now, many, many years later, we've pretty much cut that out of our diet entirely. But that was many, many steps, and it's just, we try to just get better in life. I mean, that's kind of how we live, is just coming up with these little tweaks as we get new information, right? We're not geniuses. We don't have it all figured out. We probably do hundreds of things wrong, if you will, now, but our lives are so much better than they were 10 years ago because, and not just in food, in every aspect of life, we've just tried to learn. It's a constant learning process and just making little tweaks just to make yourself healthier, more financially stable, and less busy and less stressed.
And when you're not spending all that money on food, you have it available to spend on other projects. So it's not, there are wins involved with getting this aspect down. And when you get your weight under control because you figured this out, there are savings there. There's savings from a medical insurance perspective, which is preventative. There's savings from actually needing to use your health insurance because now you don't have to worry about diabetes and hypertension and all the things that come with doctor's visits. I mean, the cheapest healthcare plan is just living a healthy lifestyle. Now, there are things that happen that are obviously you can't control, and I account for that. But there are plenty that are, including diabetes and hypertension. And I'm saying that now as a pharmacist.
Yeah. And what I think is cool about this episode for me personally, as a listener, even though I'm obviously very involved in this, is, we sat down and just hit record. And we were kind of all over the place in this episode, but I think that's awesome. I think we gave so many actionable tips, and not only very specific, granular ones, but just the theory also of how you think about this, right? Like what works for us is not necessarily going to work for you. You might not have a Costco nearby. You might not have a Wegmans nearby, but it doesn't matter. It's the thought process. It's how do I sit back and come up with a plan that's going to make my life easier and it's going to make my life healthier and more financially stable, right? I mean, that is the trifecta. And hopefully this is the first, I suspect this is going to be the first of many, because I mean, this is of these type of podcasts about food, because it really is essential. I mean, food is such a huge line item in most people's budgets, and it doesn't have to be. You can save money, you can save on that waistline, and you can save time if you're just a little bit smarter about it and have just some planning put into this. So I am extremely excited about this. I love how this conversation went, and I suspect you guys enjoyed it too. And yeah, we'd love to hear about it. Feedback, leave us comments. So I'll throw it over to Jonathan for his thoughts.
I really don't have anything to add to that. This was a lot of fun. I found myself when Brad was talking, just leaning into it almost, because I wanted to hear what are other people doing that's working. And specifically, not everything he does is going to work for me, but is there anything that I can grab and incorporate into my puzzle? I don't have it all figured out. I'm still building this. But I want this idea of something that two people that are in debt and they're trying to keep it lean and they're trying to stay healthy and they don't want to spend a lot of time working on it. What does that look like? Who's talking about that? Who has that figured out? And hopefully this was helpful for you. Thank you for listening to the Choose FI Radio podcast. This has been fantastic. Thank you, Brad, for joining me today.
Thanks, as always.
If you're interested in the show notes from today's episode, you can go to choosefi.com/007.
You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
And we're recording. Okay.
America has a problem, and that problem is an obsession with food.
I do a better intro.
Yeah, you do.
I have the radio voice. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
So,
That's awesome. I can do the intro.
yeah, that is not my.
That's hilarious. All right, so let me think. What America has an obsession. America has a problem, and that problem. No, America has an obsession with food. I want to add one more line. I'm trying to figure out what it is.
Fat and broke.
All right, yeah, that's good.
That's the two things we want to talk
All
about.
right, yeah,
If we're
you're
going
right.
to make this.
You're right. You're right. America is fat and broke. Congratulations, America. You are fat and broke.
Love it.
All right. Congratulations, America. You're fat and broke.